The year is 494 AD. The Roman Empire, a mere ghost of its former glory, clings to life as the shadow of the old pagan ways still dances in the hearts of the people. The festival of Lupercalia, though officially outlawed, echoes faintly in the whispers of the wind. Father Bernard, a humble servant of God, watches from afar. He sees the embers of paganism flickering in the eyes of his flock, a stubborn refusal to let go of the old gods and the old ways. He knows Lupercalia is close, if not in practice, then in spirit. Lupercalia, a festival dedicated to Faunus, the Roman god of fertility, was a brutal affair. Young men, the Luperci, would sacrifice goats and a dog, then strip the goats' hides and run through the streets, striking women with the bloody thongs. This was believed to purify and grant fertility, a far cry from the gentle affection we associate with love today. Father Bernard understood the people's need for ritual, for a connection to the earth and the promise of renewal. He prayed for guidance, for a way to replace these pagan practices with the light of Christ, to transform the darkness of Lupercalia into a celebration of true love and devotion. The remnants of the old ways were difficult to eradicate. The allure of primal instincts and ancient beliefs ran deep within the Roman soul. The goatskin thong, a symbol of purification and fertility, stood as a stark reminder of a past struggling to stay alive. Father Bernard began his work, weaving tales of faith and sacrifice. He spoke of Saint Valentine, a name whispered among Christians, a martyr who defied the emperor's decree and secretly married young couples, upholding the sanctity of love and marriage. He offered a new path, a new symbol of devotion. Legend has it that Saint Valentine, imprisoned for his beliefs, restored sight to the jailer's blind daughter. On the eve of his execution, he penned her a farewell message signed, "Your Valentine," a simple act of kindness, a powerful message of enduring love even in the face of death. Slowly, the Church began to replace the pagan rituals. The Feast of St. Valentine was established on February 14th, a day to honor the martyr and to celebrate Christian love, a love that was not rooted in primal urges but in divine grace. The transition was gradual, the old ways dying hard, but with each passing year, the shadow of Lupercalia faded a little more, replaced by the light of Christian love. Small gestures of kindness and affection began to surface, a subtle shift in the way people related to one another. The connection between Lupercalia and Valentine's Day remains a subject of debate. Some historians believe the Church deliberately chose February 14th to Christianize the pagan festival, replacing its fertility rituals with a celebration of saintly love. Others see a more gradual evolution, a merging of pagan and Christian traditions. Whatever the truth, Father Bernard sees the seeds of a new tradition taking root, a tradition where love is not merely a means to procreation, but a source of joy, comfort, and spiritual connection. A faint echo of Lupercalia, perhaps, but transformed by the grace of God and the sacrifice of Saint Valentine. The long winter is ending, and with it, the last vestiges of the old pagan ways are fading. The seeds of a new celebration are sown, nurtured by faith and watered by hope. The path to Valentine's Day, as we know it, has begun, a journey through faith, tradition, and the enduring human need for love. In the dim scriptorium of the monastery, Father Bernard dedicated himself to unraveling the truth behind the saints named Valentine. Legends intertwined, facts blurred, and the true stories seemed lost to time. One Valentine, a priest in Rome, defied the emperor's orders and secretly married Christian couples. Another, a bishop of Tournai, was renowned for his wisdom and piety. Were they the same man, or separate figures whose stories had become entwined? The accounts of St. Valentine's martyrdom were varied and conflicting. Some claimed he was beaten with clubs, others that he was beheaded for refusing to renounce his faith. The details remained elusive, shrouded in the mists of time. The Lupercalia, a pagan festival of purification and fertility, persisted despite the rise of Christianity. Young men, clad in goatskins, ran through the streets, striking women with thongs to ensure their fertility. The church sought to supplant the pagan rituals with Christian observances. The feast day of St. Valentine, celebrated on February 14th, became a counterpoint to the licentiousness of Lupercalia, a time for pious reflection and prayer. While the origins of St. Valentine's Day were rooted in religious observance, the echoes of pagan traditions lingered, slowly transforming the holiday into something new. Brother Thomas, what can you tell me of the Valentine who restored sight to the blind daughter of his jailer? Father Bernard asked, seeking clarity amidst the tangled narratives. The more Father Bernard researched, the more convoluted the stories became. Each account seemed to contradict the last, adding layers of myth and legend to the historical figures. Tales of miraculous healings and acts of selfless devotion were attributed to St. Valentine, elevating him to a figure of popular veneration, a champion of love and compassion. The geographical discrepancies added to the confusion. Was it possible for one man to have been both a priest in Rome and a bishop in Tournai? Or were they distinct individuals, both deserving of the title saint? The Church's strategy was clear: to Christianize pagan festivals and traditions, imbuing them with new meaning and purpose. St. Valentine's Day was but one example of this broader effort to reshape the cultural landscape. Despite the uncertainties and contradictions, Father Bernard recognized the enduring power of the St. Valentine legends. They represented a yearning for love, compassion, and spiritual devotion, values that resonated deeply within the human heart, regardless of their historical accuracy. The winds of change swept through Europe, not just on the battlefields, but also in the chambers of the heart. Nowhere was this truer than in the court of Eleanor of Aquitaine. Poitiers, in the heart of France, became a beacon of culture, a place where the rigid societal structures were subtly challenged, and the concept of love was being redefined. Eleanor, a woman of unparalleled influence, cultivated an environment where refined manners, artistic expression, and the burgeoning ideals of romantic love flourished. She fostered a space where troubadours sang tales of chivalry and unattainable devotion, where poetry dripped with longing, and where the very air thrummed with the possibilities of romance. Among those drawn to Eleanor's court was Andreas Capellanus, a cleric of acute intellect. He observed the intricate dance of courtship, the subtle nuances of desire, and the codified rituals of affection that were becoming increasingly prevalent. One evening, Eleanor hosted a gathering dedicated to the discussion of love. Courtiers, poets, and philosophers gathered, eager to share their perspectives on this most elusive of emotions. The air crackled with intellectual energy as arguments unfolded. Was love a noble pursuit, elevating the soul, or a dangerous distraction, leading to societal upheaval? Andreas, ever the scholar, meticulously recorded these discussions, recognizing the significance of the evolving concept of love. He saw how it was becoming increasingly detached from the pragmatic considerations of marriage and family. Eleanor herself referenced classical texts, drawing parallels between the ideals of courtly love and the philosophical musings of ancient thinkers. She argued that love, in its purest form, was a source of inspiration and refinement. Meanwhile, within the walls of monasteries, scholars like Father Bernard wrestled with the implications of this new philosophy. The idea of love outside the bonds of marriage presented a theological challenge, a potential threat to the established order. Years later, Andreas Capellanus presented his magnum opus, De Amore, to Eleanor. In it, he codified the rules of courtly love, outlining the proper conduct between lovers, the stages of courtship, and the very nature of desire. Eleanor received the work with keen interest, recognizing its potential to shape the social landscape. De Amore became a manual for lovers, a guide to navigating the complexities of the heart. The work sparked debate and controversy. Andreas found himself defending his ideas to those who saw them as a challenge to religious doctrine, including Father Bernard. Despite the theological concerns, the ideals of courtly love continued to spread, subtly influencing the way people viewed relationships and setting the stage for the eventual intertwining of romantic love with the celebration of St. Valentine's Day. The seeds of a new tradition had been sown. In the heart of Poitiers, Andreas Capellanus labored tirelessly. His quill danced across the parchment, carefully crafting each word, each sentence, each rule of what would become his seminal work, De Amore. He pondered the nature of love, its complexities, its contradictions. Was it a noble pursuit or a dangerous game? A divine gift or a worldly desire? The questions swirled in his mind as he sought to define the indefinable. At Eleanor of Aquitaine's court, Andreas found inspiration. He observed the intricate dance of courtship, the unspoken rules, the passionate declarations, and the heartbreaking rejections. These observations formed the basis of his treatise. He outlined the characteristics of a true lover: bravery, courtesy, generosity, and unwavering devotion. Love, according to Andreas, was a force that elevated the soul, inspiring acts of heroism and selflessness. Seeking guidance, Andreas journeyed to a nearby monastery, hoping to glean wisdom from the learned monks within its walls. There he sought out Father Bernard, a man renowned for his knowledge of both sacred and secular texts. Father Bernard, with spectacles perched upon his nose, meticulously examined Andreas, De Amore. He turned the pages slowly, absorbing the cleric's vision of love. Andreas waited with bated breath, eager to hear the monk's opinion on his ambitious endeavor. Father Bernard finally spoke. "Andreas, your work is insightful, a reflection of the world beyond these walls. But consider, does it truly serve God to elevate earthly passions above divine love?" Andreas argued, "Is not all love in its purest form a reflection of the divine? To deny earthly love is to deny a part of God's creation." Father Bernard sighed. "The Church has always been wary of unchecked passions. Remember, Andreas, that love without guidance can lead to sin." Andreas left the monastery, the monk's words echoing in his mind. He knew that his work was controversial, that it challenged the traditional views of the Church. But he was determined to share his vision of love with the world, consequences be damned. The concept of chivalry, with its elaborate code of conduct and emphasis on honor, significantly reshaped the landscape of love. Knights were expected not only to be skilled warriors, but also paragons of virtue, devoted to the service of noble ladies. Tournaments, elaborate displays of skill and prowess, became fertile ground for cultivating romantic relationships. Knights sought to impress ladies with their valor, dedicating their victories to them. The lady's favor was a prize worth striving for, and knights would go to great lengths to earn her approval, often through elaborate displays of affection and poetic declarations. The theme of unattainable love became a cornerstone of courtly romance. Love was often depicted as a painful, yet ennobling experience, inspiring acts of great devotion and sacrifice. Andreas Capellanus, in his De Amore, codified the rules of courtly love, outlining the proper conduct and etiquette for lovers. His work became a guide for those seeking to navigate the complexities of romantic relationships. A knight, emboldened by the principles outlined in De Amore, attempts to woo Lady Elinor with carefully chosen words and gestures. He presents her with tokens of his affection, hoping to demonstrate his worthiness through adherence to the established code of courtship. Lady Elinor, a discerning judge of character, weighs his sincerity and adherence to the principles of courtly love. From his quiet monastery, Father Bernard observes the growing influence of courtly love, a stark contrast to the spiritual devotion he seeks. The codification of love sparks debate within the Church, as some question the compatibility of earthly passions with spiritual ideals. The ideals of chivalry and courtly love find expression in art and literature, further solidifying their influence on medieval culture. Love, as a game governed by intricate rules, continues to shape the social interactions and artistic expressions of the medieval world. The language of love in the medieval era was not spoken in hushed whispers alone. It was sung, recited, and meticulously crafted into poetry, echoing through the halls of castles and the quiet corners of monastic libraries. It was an era where the pen, or rather the quill, was mightier than the sword when it came to matters of the heart. Across Europe, troubadours in Provence, trouvers in northern France, and minnesingers in Germany filled the air with melodies of longing. Their songs, often performed in the vernacular, celebrated the idealized woman, her beauty, her virtue, and her unattainable grace. The themes that permeated this poetic landscape were consistent: unrequited love, the agony of separation, and the ennobling power of affection. The beloved was often placed on a pedestal, an almost divine figure whose favor was sought through acts of chivalry and devotion, expressed in carefully constructed verses. Consider the works of Bernard de Ventadorn, a troubadour whose laments for his unrequited love for Elinor of Aquitaine resonated deeply with the courtly audience. His verses, filled with passionate yearning and elegant phrasing, exemplified the ideal of the suffering lover. Or Guillaume de Machaut, a trouver whose complex musical compositions and lyrical poetry explored the nuances of romantic relationships, often portraying the lady as the dominant figure, testing the knight's devotion through trials and challenges. In the German lands, Walther von der Vogewede's Minnesänger captured the essence of courtly love, blending idealism with a touch of earthy realism, reminding his audience that love, while noble, was also a human emotion, susceptible to joy and sorrow. Even Andreas Capellanus, the codifier of courtly love, felt the pull of poetic expression. He attempted to capture the essence of longing and devotion in his own verses, though he found himself wrestling with the inherent contradictions between his religious vows and the secular ideals he was documenting. He struggled to reconcile the spiritual love he was taught to embrace with the passionate, often unattainable, love celebrated in courtly circles. The earthly love was tempting, yet he was afraid that he was betraying God. His poem began as a conventional ode to a lady's beauty, praising her eyes, her hair, her virtuous nature. But as he wrote, the words became laden with doubt. Was he truly celebrating a noble emotion, or was he indulging in a dangerous worldly desire? The parchment bore witness to his internal struggle, a battlefield of ink where sacred and profane desires clashed. Each line was a testament to his attempt to reconcile the irreconcilable. In the end, Andreas, with a sigh of both defeat and liberation, crumpled the parchment and tossed it into the fire. He would continue to document the rules of courtly love, but he would leave the practice of it to others. His calling, he reminded himself, lay elsewhere. Yet the power of poetry and song to express the complexities of love remained undeniable. It shaped perceptions, fueled imaginations, and ensured that the language of the heart, in all its beauty and torment, would continue to echo through the ages, influencing the evolving traditions of St. Valentine's Day. As winter's grip began to loosen, a subtle shift occurred in the medieval mindset. The lengthening days and the return of birds heralded a time of renewal, a time when nature itself seemed to celebrate love and partnership. Father Bernard, ever observant, noted the early return of the robins. Their cheerful chirping filled the monastery gardens, a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of winter. He pondered the significance of their arrival, a natural sign of life and love's enduring cycle. Folklore intertwined with natural observation, weaving a rich tapestry of meaning around the bird's return. Each species held its own symbolic weight, with doves representing peace, swans fidelity, and nightingales romantic longing. In the refined courts, the connection between birds and love was further embellished. Minstrels sang ballads of lovesick knights and their fair ladies, comparing their yearning hearts to the calls of mating birds in the forest. Even Andreas Capellanus, in his pursuit of defining love within the rigid structure of courtly ideals, couldn't ignore the natural world's influence. The birds' instinctive pairing served as a reminder of love's primal roots. The association of St. Valentine's Day with mating season gained momentum with literary works like Geoffrey Chaucer's Parliament of Fowls. This poem, filled with vivid imagery of birds choosing their mates, cemented February 14th as a day for lovers. Chaucer's Parliament of Fowls resonated deeply within the courts. The poem's allegorical exploration of love and choice, set against the backdrop of mating birds, captured the imagination and further popularized the romantic connotations of Valentine's Day. Father Bernard, while dedicated to his religious duties, found himself captivated by the symbolism. He reflected in his journal on love as an instinctual force, as pure and natural as the birds return each spring. He wondered if these simple creatures were perhaps better teachers of love than all the grand pronouncements of court and church. The exchange of tokens and verses, often decorated with images of birds, became a cherished tradition. These early Valentines were simple expressions of affection, echoing the natural bonds observed in the avian world. Even in the bustling markets, the link between birds and Valentine's Day was evident. The sale of songbirds, meant as gifts for loved ones, further solidified the association between the holiday and the natural world. Lady Eleanor, ever the arbiter of refined customs, oversaw Valentine's Day celebrations marked by symbolism and elegance. The release of doves, representing peace and the freedom of love, became a cherished tradition within her court. The medieval Valentine's Day, a blend of religious observance, courtly ideals, and natural symbolism, had taken flight. Like the birds returning each spring, the celebration of love had found its place in the hearts and traditions of the people. As the practice of exchanging tokens of affection grew, a new custom began to take root, primarily among the upper classes. These tokens, precursors to the modern Valentine's card, were precious messages of love and admiration. These early Valentine's cards were not mass-produced like those of later centuries. Each one was a unique work of art, painstakingly crafted with precious materials and personalized messages. The materials used in these cards reflected the status of the sender and receiver. Fine parchment or vellum was common, often embellished with gold leaf, hand-painted illustrations, and intricate calligraphy. Designs varied widely, reflecting the artistic sensibilities of the time. Heraldic symbols, floral motifs, and images of hearts, doves, and other symbols of love were common. The messages contained within these cards were equally diverse. Many drew upon the conventions of courtly love, expressing admiration, longing, and devotion. Poems, often original compositions, were frequently included, showcasing the sender's literary skills and emotional depth. These verses echoed the themes of chivalry and unattainable love, prominent in the courtly tradition. The symbolism of these cards often drew upon the natural world. Birds, particularly doves, were common symbols of love and fidelity, reflecting the popular belief that birds paired off during mating season around St. Valentine's Day. For Lady Eleanor, receiving a beautifully crafted Valentine's card was more than just a pleasant gesture. It was a recognition of the evolving expressions of love within her court and beyond. The card's intricate design and carefully chosen words spoke volumes about the sender's intentions and the evolving cultural significance of St. Valentine's Day. As she shared the sentiments expressed in the card with her court, she reflected on the journey of love's expression, from ancient rituals to the refined art of courtly romance. Andreas Capellanus, witnessing this cultural shift, diligently documented the evolving customs of love, including the significance of these tokens in his treatise, De Amore. From pagan roots to saintly legends, and now to the blossoming of courtly love, the celebration of St. Valentine's Day was steadily transforming, leaving Father Bernard to ponder the ever-changing landscape of human affection and its reflection in the heart of medieval society. The Church, in its wisdom, held a complex view of love, carefully balancing the earthly desires of humanity with the divine call to salvation. Marriage was deemed a sacred sacrament, ordained for the purpose of procreation and the proper ordering of society. Lust, however, was considered a grave sin, a dangerous deviation from the path of righteousness. The emergence of courtly love presented a considerable challenge to the Church's doctrines. This idealized, often unattainable love, celebrated in song and verse, frequently existed outside the bonds of matrimony, placing desire and personal fulfillment above the sanctioned union blessed by God. The sacrament of confession offered solace and guidance to those struggling with the temptations of the flesh. Penance was prescribed as a means of atoning for sins of lust and desire, urging individuals to turn away from worldly pleasures and seek redemption through faith. Yet within the very courts that fostered courtly love, the Church sought to maintain its influence. Sermons were preached, emphasizing the sanctity of marriage and the dangers of succumbing to illicit desires. The tension between spiritual devotion and earthly passions remained a constant undercurrent in medieval society. From the pulpit, Father Bernard spoke with unwavering conviction. Marriage, he declared, is the bedrock of our society, a sacred union blessed by God. It is through marriage that we ensure the continuation of our faith and the proper upbringing of future generations. He continued, his voice resonating with concern. Lust, on the other hand, is a dangerous path, a siren song that leads only to damnation. It is a fleeting pleasure that offers no lasting satisfaction, a betrayal of the vows we make to God. Though he did not explicitly condemn the ideals of courtly love, Father Bernard's sermon served as a subtle reminder of the Church's teachings on marriage and the dangers of unbridled passion. He understood the allure of romance, but emphasized the importance of grounding love in faith and devotion. The message, though subtly delivered, resonated within the walls of the monastery and beyond, a counterpoint to the more secular expressions of love that were gaining popularity in the courts of Europe. Father Bernard knew that the human heart was a complex and often contradictory thing. He prayed that individuals would find balance between their earthly desires and their spiritual obligations, embracing love in a way that honored both God and their fellow human beings. The Church continued to grapple with the evolving understanding of love, seeking to reconcile the ideals of courtly romance with its own doctrines on marriage and salvation. The dialogue between faith and passion continued to shape the cultural landscape of the medieval world. The concept of courtly love, with its emphasis on chivalry and romantic devotion, persisted, influencing the arts, literature, and social customs of the era. The seeds of Valentine's Day traditions were being sown in this fertile ground, a blend of religious observance and secular celebration. Ultimately, the Church sought to guide individuals towards a love that was both fulfilling and righteous, a love that honored God and strengthened the bonds of community. The evolution of Valentine's Day would continue, shaped by these competing forces of faith, desire, and tradition. From the echoes of ancient pagan rituals to the hallowed halls of the Church, the medieval period witnessed a remarkable transformation in the understanding and celebration of love. The vestiges of Lupercalia, a festival of purification and fertility, were gradually replaced by the feast day of St. Valentine, a figure shrouded in legend and piety. Yet, the earthly desires that fueled the pagan celebrations were not entirely extinguished. Instead, they found new expression in the burgeoning ideals of courtly love. The Church sought to imbue the celebration with Christian meaning, associating the day with acts of charity and remembrance of the martyred St. Valentine. But the human heart, it seemed, yearned for more than just piety. The seeds of romantic love, separate from the bonds of marriage and familial duty, were being sown. In the courts of Europe, particularly under the influence of figures like Eleanor of Aquitaine, the concept of courtly love blossomed. Love became a game of pursuit and longing, governed by strict rules and conventions. The unattainable object of affection was idealized, and knights sought to prove their devotion through acts of chivalry and eloquent expressions of love. Andreas Capellanus, with his De Amore, codified these rules, providing a framework for understanding and practicing courtly love. His work, while controversial in its time, cemented the notion of love as a complex and multifaceted emotion, worthy of careful study and cultivation. The pairing of birds during mating season further intertwined with the celebration of St. Valentine's Day, symbolizing the renewal of life and the instinctive drive towards connection. This association, coupled with the romantic ideals of the time, transformed the day into an occasion for expressing affections. Literary works, such as Chaucer's Parliament of Fowls, popularized the holiday as a day specifically for lovers. The poem's depiction of birds choosing their mates on St. Valentine's Day helped solidify the association between the holiday and romantic pairing. The exchange of poems and tokens of affection became increasingly common, particularly among the upper classes. These early Valentine's cards, often handcrafted and richly decorated, served as tangible expressions of love and devotion. Craftsmen and artisans found a ready market for their skills, creating intricate tokens and personalized gifts that spoke volumes of the giver's affection. The act of giving became as important as the gift itself, a testament to the depth of feeling. Andreas Capellanus, now older, reflects on the evolution of love. He acknowledges the lasting impact of the medieval period, noting how the blending of religious observance with the yearning for romantic connection shaped the very fabric of society. The tradition of exchanging simple tokens of affection began to spread beyond the noble courts, finding its way into the lives of ordinary people. Handmade cards, bearing heartfelt messages, became a cherished expression of love and friendship. From its humble beginnings in pagan rituals and Christian saintly legends, to the refined ideals of courtly love, Valentine's Day evolved into a complex and multifaceted celebration. The traditions we know today are a direct legacy of these medieval developments, a testament to the enduring power of love and its ability to transcend time and culture. The heart, a symbol of love and devotion, remains at the center of the celebration. It is a reminder that, despite the changing times, the fundamental human desire for connection and affection endures, echoing across the centuries from the medieval courts to our modern hearts.